Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got some personal conclusions for you about this little guy. This is the Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean 8900. So I've already filmed a review, and you've already seen a review describing this watch kind of in detail, and talking about the watch itself. And I give my final conclusions about this as a wristwatch, completely independently of myself, although that's not true. Everything is with the reviewer. I mean, you cannot observe without affecting the thing you're observing. Whatever, I digress. But today I want to talk more about the subjective side of it. My feelings about this watch at a purely Nick Shabazz level. I don't expect anybody else to agree or disagree with anything I have to say here. This is just my feelings that I'm sharing for interest. For me, my biggest feeling still is that I really like this watch a lot. I mean, absolutely 100%. It is a stellar little piece. It is functional. It is beautiful. You look down at this on your wrist, you're just like, wow, that's great. And I talked about that in the review. I don't need to go there necessarily again, but there is a lot of joy to be found here. I've also learned what I needed to. When I first picked this guy up, I kind of pitched it in some ways as an experiment, and it really was. This is the most money I've spent on anything without wheels or walls, and I wanted to see whether it actually made sense, in a longer-term sense, to buy something like that. I mean, what does that feel like? What is that like? A lot of people ask, Nick, what's the difference between a luxury watch and otherwise, and a lot of people, heck, part of the reason I bought this is that a lot of people, I'm a Quartz guy. I talk about Quartz watches a lot, and I talk about them reverently because they're incredible technology with a lot of advantages. And all the mechanical guys said, well, yeah, but when you go to a luxury mechanical watch, all of that gets better. And so that was kind of the first question, like, is a high-tech mechanical watch, and this is arguably about as high-tech as they come with the coaxial movement, a bunch of other details in there, is it just as good as Quartz? And at some level, I would say, pretty much, yeah, because it's as accurate as a Quartz watch. Over 220 days, with some careful wearing, I got around the same accuracy as you get on something. This is a Quartz Omega Seamaster Planet Professional here. Get about the similar accuracy there. Get similar durability, similar functionality. I mean, and you get the mechanical excellence of it. I mean, at the end of the day, seriously, there is a little wheel in the back there that is ticking along and keeping time. There is not a single transistor involved. And so at some level, this is a mechanical watch that is just as good as Quartz and just as functional for everyday carry as any Quartz watch could be if you put aside the price entirely. And so at that level, I've learned the answer to that is, well, yes, if you pay more money, mechanical watches can get really, really good and can be just as excellent. The other question that a lot of people have kind of asked is, well, what's it like to actually just own a high-end luxury watch? I mean, and at some level, that's maybe a little bit of a silly question because, I mean, it's a lot like owning a low-end luxury watch, just a lot more expensive. Frankly, it's a lot like wearing a watch. And after a few weeks and months, even with this guy, even with the excellence here, this just feels like you've got a watch on. You look down at it, you see the time, and that's really all that's going on here. You lose track of the fact, and I think as you should, that this is something that's that damned expensive. Unless you're focusing on the details, unless you're looking at it as like, wow, look, art, it is just a watch at the end of the day. And so I still feel that way. Even when it's a watch I paid for, it still ends up feeling like a watch. And so if you're looking at having a Rolex, having a high-end Omega, as being something completely different from wearing any other watch, as it being a revelation relative to, a cheapy citizen like this little guy right here, then, well, you got another thing coming, because it isn't all that different. At the end of the day, you're just wearing a watch. It's just a question of how nicely made that watch is, etc. And so those were kind of the big questions I set out to answer. Ultimately, for the watch, this guy has three major issues. I mentioned these in the review already, but still. One is the weight and the size. The second is the fact that it is a mechanical watch at the end of the day. And then the third is the price. The weight and the size, look, they're not great, but it's a compromise I'm willing to live with. Until Omega releases the Planet Ocean Skinny, and they really should, because they can make watches that are a lot slimmer, and they have in the past. I mean, this right here, and given this is Quartz, but still, they can absolutely make watches that are much smaller. But they didn't here, and that's a little frustrating to me. But the thing is, even at the end of the day, given the weight, given the size, given everything, the thickness here, it's not prohibitive. I can wear this guy very happily. Even, on my smaller wrists, it still works. It still looks okay. That is fine. That's something I can absolutely live with, and in some ways, the weight is the least interesting of these issues. Sorry about that, got a phone call, hence the watch jump there. But the thing is, mechanicals aren't necessarily the best choice for me. That's the next point here, which was probably poorly edited after the following point there. But anyways, it's true. At the end of the day, I don't feel like I am a one-watch sort of guy. And that's where the mechanical cannot match Quartz. A good Quartz watch will have a power reserve, meaning you can take it off your wrist and it'll tick along fine, so to speak, for years. Even on a battery-powered watch, you're looking at least 2 years there. Whereas on this guy, you take it off your watch for 72 hours, it's going to stop running. And that's still a lot of time. And, honestly, if you wear this every other day, that's okay. But the thing is, you need to wear this watch very regularly in order to keep it running. Or it's going to take you a couple of minutes to get it back into sync, get the date adjusted each time you do decide to wear it. You can always buy a watch winder and then use electricity to keep your expensive watch running. I don't know. I struggle with that for some reason, but that is absolutely a factor here. The other thing is, on the periods where you are wearing, where you're not wearing this little guy, it is a little bit less accurate when it's off the wrist. This guy runs more accurately in the variety of positions that you've got it on as you're wearing it than it does otherwise. That's something to keep in mind. And, compared to a watch that is, a solar-powered watch that syncs to atomic time, this is just very functionally, fundamentally different. And then add to it the fact that because it's mechanical, there are some very expensive services in this watch's future. It does reinforce, even though this is just as good as Quartz in most functional ways, Quartz probably still is a better choice for most people, even if they can afford to go higher end. And, I gotta be honest with you, for me personally, this watch with a very nice high-accuracy solar quartz movement would be even better. Omega, please, help me out, guys. I know you can do it. Just do it. But anyways, that is absolutely, and I know that was just like high heresy. The mechanical watch guys are picking up their pitchforks right now. And so that was kind of the second issue, is that for me, mechanical watches just fundamentally aren't the better choice. If you wear a number of watches, you're going to spend a lot of time keeping them in sync, or you're going to be buying a watch winder and artificially wearing on you. I don't know. That's a whole other thing. But, honestly, even then, that's not a huge deal. The biggest issue for me on this guy comes down to price. If this were $1,000, or something like that, $500, I would feel no conflict at all. I would own this for the rest of my life. There would be zero question at all. But the thing is, this money is a big deal here in a number of ways. And I mean, to start with, I am not necessarily a typical luxury watch buyer. I mean, a lot of people buy an Omega, a Rolex, an AP, a Patek to show their wealth very explicitly. Part of the goal there is to say, hey, look what I can afford. Hey, look, I've arrived. I mean, you don't buy a gold Rolex because you need to know the time. You buy it because you want other people to see it. And, this may be very personal for me, very different, but I don't feel that way. Honestly, I haven't arrived. Let's be real. I am not a man of power or influence. And at some level, I am a little bit embarrassed to flaunt the wealth that I have. This is strange and probably hypocritical coming from a guy who shows off gear on Instagram all day. But to me, at least, that's not really what it's about. This is at a level, honestly, of displaying wealth that I'm not quite comfortable with. And at some level, it felt very weird walking around with this much money on my wrist. I mean, some guy, stops me on the street, hey, you got $1? Well, practically speaking, I probably don't because I don't carry cash. But still, there's a level at which, I have spent an amount of money that would be life-changing for this person on a three-hand watch that doubles his art. Look, that's the nature of life. That's always true. Some will suffer greatly for the lack of what others don't appreciate. But the thing is, and let's not have the comment section turn into a debate on economic inequality. I don't think we're going to solve that one today here, guys. But the simple fact is that was something that left me feeling a little bit self-conscious. Just like, I'm not super wealthy. I haven't arrived, and yet here this is on my wrist. And honestly, it left me feeling like I'm just not sure I could walk around with a $90,000 Patek on my wrist that I purchased. I mean, even if I could somehow afford to buy it, I'm not sure. I mean, this could absolutely change if my bank account miraculously grew a few zeros. And if somebody wants to send me, $50 million so I can test this theory, I would be totally game for that, by the way. Just let me know. We'll talk. My email's in the profile. Sorry, couldn't resist, right? And, maybe this is all about perspective. As somebody who is not of the variety of people who could normally buy a luxury watch if it weren't for my Patreon patrons and having a YouTube channel, maybe I feel differently than most. But the thing is, although I want to keep looking at and reviewing these high-end pieces for the mastery, for the mechanism, and I absolutely will be featuring more high-end pieces on the channel as well. And I'm working on ways that I can do that without taking the bath, etc. And I'm excited about that. I'm not necessarily sure that pieces of this caliber, watch joke, are going to be a part of my daily life. I mean, I love the idea of owning and wearing a Rolex GMT Master because it's an incredible timepiece, but I'm not sure it's something that I'm looking to save up for. I'm not sure that, maybe I'm happier at a lower level than this guy is. And part of that, I think, is due to something I've talked about before, the cost-carry comfort curve. This is the idea that, there are certain pieces of gear that, you want to be able to use, you want to be able to carry, you want to feel comfortable with. And this is a lot of cash to have on the wrist, like in a purely practical sense, putting aside philosophy, ethics, all that. And so that's something I was thinking about. Look, insurance helps, and if you buy something like this, you should absolutely get it covered. Talk to your insurer, because that way, with a policy on this that's like $15 a year or something like that, if I get mugged, I hand it over, I come out fine, no problem. If I get in a car wreck, destroys the watch, you know what, that's covered too. That's nice, and it makes it feel possible. If this were uninsured, I just couldn't ever leave the house with it. But there is still a level at which, even knowing all that I think about this more than I would a lower price piece. I mean, if I'm wearing this little Citizen guy for $80, there's not the question of, well, I'm going to wear this out tonight. Should I run home and switch watches? I'm just a little more eager to get this guy back into the safe than I am with even, pieces like this is a Quartz Seamaster Pro. And, I'm about a grand into this guy, and, I for some reason, that's a meaningful difference to me. Again, I'm a very lucky man talking about these kinds of numbers. But still, rather than being a tool that you never think about, just something that lives on your wrist and it's not even a second thought, there is always a level at which I am thinking here. And the watch, as a result, never quite got boring to me. What I mean by that is it never got to the point where it was something I just stopped thinking about, and it just became a good functional tool on my wrist. The dollar signs were always there, and that was a little bit weird to me. And ultimately, part of this is probably because it's a huge amount of money tied up in me, in my life, that is. I mean, for me, this was a huge purchase. I'm very, very lucky, but I am not like, oh my God, wealthy, in any sense of the word. This was the most money I have ever spent on anything without wheels or walls. And if it weren't for the channel, if it weren't for my patrons, if it weren't for having, basically a venue to try this out in, there's no way I could justify this. And so, at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, that's fine if I'm wearing it every day. This is my kind of only watch, so to speak. But keeping this guy in my safe as I'm wearing something else, which is also a little pricey, just saying, is a little bit nuts. It's not something I can justify. And so I'd love it. I'd love to keep it. But I've often said that a big factor as you're considering a luxury watch purchase or a luxury knife or a luxury anything is whether you'd feel better with that amount of money on your wrist or in your bank account. And you know what? For me, I'm a little conflicted. And so ultimately, I don't know whether this guy is going to stick around. On one hand, it is a great piece. It's got serious mastery. It's got serious horological chops, and it is astoundingly good. I mean, the fact that it is able to do just as well as a very, very nice Quartz watch, using spinny fancy gears in the back here, that is nothing short of amazing. Absolutely 100%. And it does probably lend a little bit of credibility to the channel among luxury watch buyers. I mean, people don't necessarily, oh, okay, well, here's a Citizen, there's a level at which that may be a thing. And you know what? There is going to be a big bath involved if I sell this guy. The Omega, well, if you sell it, you buy retail, you sell it, you lose money. I didn't buy retail, but I'm still lose some money. And so there is some conflict, and there's Schrodinger's bath there. I got a video about that. Until you sell it, it doesn't feel like you lost the money. But anyways, it's also, though, at the same time, it's not the only one and only watch for me. I've got a lot of really nice pieces. And I'm going to keep looking at mechanicals, but I am a Quartz guy at the end of the day. Going back to a Quartz watch honestly feels a little bit more like, yeah, that's right. I am accuracy obsessed. I love the idea of Quartz. I think it's a really, really cool thing. And to me, it's just as neat to have a little oscillating crystal in there that's dictating the time with incredible accuracy as it is. And especially like the super accurate Quartz. This guy's on track to lose 12 seconds a year, guys. Holy crap. But anyways, I'm kind of a Quartz guy at the end of the day, and this is absolutely not that. I'm also not planning to produce a next generation to hand it down to. That is kind of one of the fetishes of mechanical watch owners, talking about how they're going to give the watch to their kids. That's a great idea. It's a beautiful thing, but I'm not going to have kids, so no one to give it to. And the thing is, even if I do take a bath in selling this, what remains in this guy, even after bath, is a very, very solid little honeymoon dicking around here. And so at that level, I don't know, I can justify it. Look, ultimately, ultimately, it's not an immediate thing. I've still got some videos yet to make. It's not super urgent, but it is definitely on my mind 100%. And so that's kind of my personal conclusion here. First, that this is a really incredible watch. 100%. Like I said in the review, it is a gem. It's incredible. And that high-end mechanical watches can absolutely be damn near perfect for everyday carry despite spinning gears. It's not the case that mechanical is necessarily a bad choice for anybody. If you're willing to spend the money, you can get something really incredible that makes you forget that it's spinning gears, and at some level, that's still astounding to me. It also tells me that luxury watches are nice, but at the end of the day, if you're just wearing them, they're not all that different from regular ones. They're just watches. And then ultimately, my conclusions were that the Planet Ocean is a magnificent piece, but despite everything else, it is a lot of money, and thus it's going to be a little complicated for me. And I have all kinds of conflicting opinions and whatnot about that. But, you know, there you go. I wish I maybe had a stronger, you know, oh my God, this conclusion. But those are my feelings here. I hope you found it interesting at the very least. And that you've enjoyed this little experiment, perhaps as much as I have. And I'll keep you guys in the loop. Patreon patrons would be the first to hear if this goes up for sale, because they'd have a crack at it. But certainly otherwise, I do hope that... I hope that you enjoyed it, and thank you very much, by the way, to my patrons, to my viewers, to everybody for making doing something like this a remote possibility. So, there you go. Hope this has been interesting to you. Have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.